Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the next episode of our live Twitch stream with IBM Cloud for VMware Solutions. It's currently Wednesday, July 3rd, 1600 on the East Coast in New York time. My name is Jack Benny. I'm a senior managing consultant for the Office of the CTO with IBM Cloud for VMware Solutions. And today I have with me Scott Moonen, staff technical, what is that? Senior technical staff member. My apologies, sir. And Frank Chodacki, a senior architect and engineer, and we all support the IBM Cloud for VMware Solutions. So how's it going, Scott?
Great.
Cool.
My beard, however, is not anywhere near as impressive as you guys, so I have some catch-up work to do.
It'll take a couple of days, but you'll get there. So today, and Frank, how are you?
Hey, man, another day in paradise. Right?
Living the dream.
Yeah, I am.
Awesome. So today we wanted to take some time and spend and basically review the release notes of our latest platform release of 3.1, which we posted for general availability on July 1st. So Scott, did you want to just kind of jump right in, or is there anything that you wanted to talk about before we get started? And also for folks that are tuning in or viewing, please feel free to post questions or comments or feedback into the chat, and we'll address those as we can. And we just hope to keep this open and loose and present some good information about what we're doing and what we have in store for the future. Thank you. Go ahead, Scott.
Sounds good. So I'm logged in here to the IBM Cloud catalog, and I'm going to jump straight to the VMware part of that catalog with the little shortcut menu, the little hamburger menu as we call it.
So Scott, one of the things that we have as part of our release cycle, we try to commit to about every 6 weeks. Is that like pretty much standard, and that's what we're looking for the rest of this year, or is everything still on track?
So for 2019, I think it's a 7-week cycle, and it varies from time to time. We will extend it sometimes based on considerations like holidays. So you may see slightly longer release cycles here for the rest of the year, but it's roughly every 2 months. So
okay, thank you.
Here I'm in the documentation, and you see the basic sort of getting started materials. We've got detailed documentation on all of our offerings, and then further we've got our solution architectures. So as part of the high level getting started materials, we've got our release notes here, and I've pulled up the release notes for version 3.1, which is the version that we released this past Monday. So I'm going to take you through this. I have it printed out beside me, so I'm not going to come back to this for every single item. But the first thing I want to show off is our single node trial for data protection and disaster recovery. So previously we had a single node trial offering for migration and app modernization, and that was a combo. One hosts roughly $4,000 a month. That included VMware HCX and IBM Cloud Private. So we have a new single node trial offering, and it's a slightly different combo. So it has VMware HCX still for migration, and then it also includes Veeam backup and replication, and Zerto disaster recovery. So this is a one-node offering that comprises all three of those, and the estimated monthly cost is here we are in my account. So I'm not sure that this is the floor price as we call it, but it's roughly around $5,000.
So what's one of the what is the value add, I guess, of offering a single node trial for customers?
This is a way to take these offerings for a test spin, and actually this is a good combo with the next item as well. That we can highlight. So we also have another new tile here on the catalog, which is the IBM Cloud Expert Services tile. So we have a few other consulting offerings here. So IBM Services has some managed services that they offer for VMware in general, and then specifically for Veeam and Zerto. There's also a mission critical offering that IBM Cloud Services organization has. But this is a more kind of lightweight consulting offering that's offered by the IBM Cloud Expert Services team in the IBM Cloud organization. And they provide 4 main services as part of their offering. So one of these is, let me see, the Jumpstart. So they have 2 Jumpstart offerings. There's a Jumpstart for vCenter Server that they'll work with a customer over the course of a week to introduce them to the vCenter Server offering, talk about some of the unique aspects of IBM Cloud and networking, and how do you connect to IBM Cloud, how do you make use of VMware NSX, which many customers may not have experience with on-premise, but is a really core piece of how networking works in the cloud. And so there's a 1-week consultation that they offer there. There's also a hybridity bundle Jumpstart that includes both the vCenter Server as well as VMware HCX. So there's in addition to getting started with the vCenter Server, there's part of that week exercise together with our customer is to migrate to the cloud using VMware HCX.
So it's kind of like more of a white glove service for delivery aspects, having kind of a single point of contact for technical issues and things.
Exactly.
Now with the hybridity bundle, you pointed out like that includes obviously like VMware HCX for VLAN extension from an on-premise into cloud. Now, is that a different? Is that like a couple more weeks, or is that just still kind of a single?
Yeah, that's still part of the same scope, roughly 1 week under normal circumstances. So this offering is very likely to use the single node trial as an inexpensive basis for kicking the tires, testing things out in IBM Cloud.
Okay. Getting a taste of the cola before getting the whole bottle, right?
Yeah, before you order a truck.
Okay, gotcha. Before you order a truck, okay.
Yeah. So and then there's 2 other offerings they have. One is just an architecture workshop, which is kind of a design and planning session, helping you to plan out doing things like sizing and effort estimation. Keep in mind that the VMware offerings are not, their customer managed offerings are not IBM managed offerings unless you pursue some of these other IBM managed services. And so there's a lot that you need to plan for still when you're operating in the cloud that you're used to planning on premise. But this architecture workshop helps you plan for things like backup and restore, disaster recovery, replication, management and monitoring. How is that going to work in the cloud for you? And then the final offering they have is a basic on-demand consulting. It's a sort of an expert on-demand. As you're getting along the way in your cloud journey, if you have questions, the IBM Cloud Expert Services team can be available to your team to answer implementation questions.
Awesome.
So this goes hand in hand then with that single node trial offering. The Jumpstart offerings in particular are a good way to kick the tires of IBM Cloud.
Okay. And so when so does it so that just it's a 90-day for both of those, a 90-day trial? Is that what I see there? Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
All right. And then what happens after 90 days?
This is not a single node is not a good architecture to build your solution on in the cloud. So we really do not want the single node to persist over into your production environment. We want you to build a clean production environment. Okay. So it's there.
This is evaluation, proof of technology, but not production type workloads.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Okay.
But it's still something that, we talked about. It's not a managed service. You own it. You get root. Mm-hmm. You can destroy it. You can do whatever you want.
Yep.
Unlike other managed offerings, you really have full access, full control. Just like you would if you provisioned a full-blown instance. So it's a nice way to start off.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I mean those that are familiar. We stick with joint collaboration of like best practices between IBM and VMware. Obviously, we're part of the Technical Alliance program with VMware, so we offer a lot of collaboration there. And for most, I would say even junior VMware administrators, the ease of use of our platform is much aligned with what you would see in any type of on-premise installation. Which and then allowing that extension, I really think helps. Because it is the same skill set. For those that are unfamiliar, I think this Cloud Expert Services kind of helps kind of piece together some of those things and gets folks kind of maybe started in the right direction, thinking about consideration points and other methods of integration into their environment and how that they would consume like a full-blown cloud. So it sounds kind of like a stepping stone type thing, right? Mm-hmm. So that's cool.
Yep. I would recommend it, especially if you're not, if you don't have experience with VMware NSX on premise. I think that you're going to have to adopt it eventually in the cloud, and it is a powerful tool. So getting help walking around it and familiarizing yourself with it and learning what power you have using VMware NSX, I think is an important part of that.
I'd say NSX is even more important when you get to cloud, because it allows you to, have, to a certain extent, infrastructure portability, right? So you're deploying your infrastructure, your networking topology, on top of the IBM cloud infrastructure, and you can kind of stay divorced from that. And if you want to recreate it in another site, move it, recreate it somewhere else, you're not tied to that infrastructure. So it's the way to go.
Yep. Software-defined networking is how you gain control of the network in the cloud. You don't want to be provisioning thousands of VLANs in the cloud. You want to be using VXLANs, logical switches for that. And ultimately, NSXT is coming too. So it won't be VXLAN at that point. But okay, the next thing we have to talk about is the IBM Cloud Cost Estimator. So I'm going to show this off here by starting a little ordering process for a vCenter server instance. And the cost estimator, what it allows you to do is to generate a cost estimate of a bundle of services and not just a single service. So previously, we allowed you to produce a cost estimate just for vCenter server, but now you can produce a cost estimate that bundles several services together. So here I'm going to order a simple vCenter server instance.
Can you walk us through this just a little bit?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I gave my instance a name. I'm picking vSphere 6.7 as the basis. We still support 6.5.
Okay.
I'm using cloud rental licenses for everything, and I'm picking NSX Enterprise. It shows a data center location in Dallas, US South, and I'm choosing a Skylake server here, a 36-core server. I'll get 3 of those servers, which is a recommended minimum for production, so that you have at least three homes for your NSX controllers. And I'm ordering a little bit of NFS storage for my instance at the performance level of 4 IOPS per gigabyte. And the last thing I need to do before I can generate an estimate is to choose a domain and a subdomain.
Right.
Example.com. One other thing I want to do here is I'm going to order Veeam for my instance, and I'll add that and say I want to license 50 virtual machines. And then another thing that's noteworthy is that in this release, we're now provisioning not just the Veeam backup and replication application, but also the full Veeam availability suite. So previously you were entitled to the Veeam availability suite, but you had to install it yourself. But now that's being installed for you.
Gotcha. What's that, Frank?
I was just going to say, for those who are unfamiliar with our offerings, vCenter server does not mean you just get a vCenter server. It's the entire SD stack with servers. We know, not the greatest name, but it's just to be clear.
Yeah, you're getting ESX
server and NSX and ESX and vSAN if you order it. Yeah.
So you don't want to look at this one expensive vCenter server.
Yeah.
Yep. So here I have the option of provisioning it. I have the option of looking at a pricing details PDF, but new in this release, I can add it to an estimate. So I'm going to add this to an estimate, and it shows up here with a little pencil icon. And now I'm going to go back to the catalog, and I ordered Veeam, and Veeam is integrated with Cloud Object Storage. So I'm going to scroll down here to the storage. I want to order a Cloud Object Storage instance as well, and tie that into Veeam so that my VM backups have a first tier of endurance storage and then a second tier of Cloud Object Storage.
And what is the benefit of that?
The benefit of that is pricing and retention. So you might still use the endurance for short-term retention, say backups within the last week, but you can, at a very effective price, retain backups for years potentially using Cloud Object Storage.
Okay.
So I'm going to add a Cloud Object Storage to my estimate here. And I'm given the choice of resiliency location. So I'm going to choose cross-region resiliency, which is going to replicate outside, both within the region I choose, but then also outside of that region. So US cross-region will replicate both perhaps between US South and US East. So it'll be in Dallas and also Washington, DC. Choose the standard storage class and estimate how much storage should I do, guys?
How about 5,000?
Well, if it's going to be, if it's going to be Jack's albums behind him there, probably.
Yeah, we gotta convert these to MP3s, and AIFs, and WAV files, and OGG.
5 terabytes, or
okay.
And we'll say that we're mostly going to be pumping into it, so but not drawing out of it a lot. And so the minimum number of well, actually, I forget what the request count constitutes here. I need to read up on my cloud object storage, but I'll say that it's a low number of requests. Yeah, and I'll go ahead and calculate the cost of that, and that's going to be added to my estimate then. So I can save that to my price estimate, and now I can review a price estimate that includes both VMware vCenter Server as well as cloud object storage, and I can download a PDF for that and show it to my boss and ask her for permission to go ahead and provision.
Awesome. Okay, that is much more cleaner.
Mm-hmm. All right, so back to VMware in the catalog, and the next thing I want to show you has to do with also spending money. So I want to add, what I want to do now is not order a whole new instance, but I want to add some new hosts to my instance. So here's my vCenter instance, VCS Scott, and I'll show you right now that I have one cluster with 3 servers in it.
It's coming.
It's coming. There's a new column in this table too, this storage column. So this new column shows you whether you have vSAN or NFS storage for the cluster at a glance.
And that's specific throughout the cluster. No mix.
Yes. Yep.
Like what do you mean? So if my storage is vSAN and NFS, it'll say vSAN and NFS?
No, this shows you the baseline storage that was ordered for the cluster. So
as part of the cluster.
Ordered vSAN, exactly. It'll say vSAN.
Okay.
If you add additional NFS storage, it'll still say vSAN.
Okay.
So I can drill into the cluster and see some details. So here, this shows me the details on any other NFS storage I might have added in a vSAN cluster. And then I've got the network details here. So now the new feature, the new capability we have in this release is to be able to add hosts with a different host profile. So the hosts that I have right now are the Skylake 4110 28 core hosts. And by default, when I add more hosts, I'm going to add hosts with the same configuration, but I can select a new bare metal server configuration when I'm adding the hosts. And the 2 main use cases we're envisioning here are, first of all, if you want to upgrade your cluster. So let's say I have a Broadwell cluster instead of a Skylake cluster. So I could actually begin adding Skylake hosts to my Broadwell cluster, and then move my workload over and begin to remove the Broadwell hosts. So host replacement in the cluster is now fully supported in the UI, where you can add hosts of the higher CPU type, and then also remove hosts of the lower CPU type.
Yeah, that's a good approach, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I was just going to say, like, it is very common. Anybody that's ever done upgrades at an ESX level, or even doing hardware level upgrades, adding in a new host that's at that level, maintenance mode, doing the round robin storage of emotion from host to host is a very, very traditional mechanism for upgrading. So this is great that this feature is available, especially as newer families of processors and things come out. We'll be able to easily react to that and grow capacity per the client's requirements. So
and even adding another cluster to do that function means there could be some configuration change, unforeseen. So sticking with the same cluster is, the safest way to go for sure for a more seamless upgrade. So it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Agree.
The other use case here would be if you want to sort of upsize the hosts that you have already in your cluster without necessarily changing the CPU type. So as you know, I have these smaller Skylake processors. If I wanted to start adding 36 core hosts to my cluster, I could do that. The other really good use case here is if you're growing your vSAN capacity. So I may have a set of hosts that have a certain number and size of disks, and I'm wanting to adjust the vSAN capacity. I can do that now in the user interface by adding hosts with a different vSAN disk configuration. So I can add a host with more and or bigger disks compared to the hosts that are already in the cluster. And same idea, I can then use that to sort of drain over the workload and the storage to the new hosts and retire the older hosts in time.
Sweet.
And as you see, the add to estimate button is also here, so I can generate a PDF estimate for my boss on this order form as well.
Okay. Oh, wait a minute. See, I see maintenance mode. I know what that is, but can you just explain that for folks?
Very good. Yes. So the purpose of this.
Yeah.
The purpose of this button, and it's checked by default because this is a best practice, is we will add the host to your cluster, but we will leave it in maintenance mode for you. And the assumption is that you may have some other sort of remediation work that you need to perform on this host before you're going to allow it to participate in the cluster. So for example, your security and compliance requirements require you to disable IPMI on the host before the workloads are running on it. So you can go into the software control panel, the IBM Cloud Infrastructure control panel, and disable IPMI on that host, and then turn off maintenance mode. Or maybe you have some patches or some VIBs you need to install. All of that work you can perform before the host is going to participate in sharing of storage and workloads. So by default, we'll leave it in maintenance mode for you.
We have a question on EBC mode.
Yeah, ANKSOS asks, what about EVC, right? When adding new hosts, do we set an EVC level, or talk about that for a minute?
Very good question. So generally, there's one exception, but generally we set EBC mode when we create a cluster for you. So, and we'll set it to the level that the cluster is at. So the case that I described earlier, where you have a Broadwell cluster and you're wanting to add Skylake hosts to it, that Broadwell cluster was provisioned already with Broadwell EVC mode set. So as you add the Skylake hosts to the cluster, they'll remain in a Broadwell EVC mode, and then you can begin to migrate your workload over. And at the point you reach all hosts in the cluster being Skylake hosts, you can reset the EVC mode to Skylake if you wish. And then at that point, you could also further reboot VMs if you wanted to pick up the new hardware characteristics. But the reboot would be optional. And so the EVC mode should be a smooth operation in most cases for you, and you can set it to the new EVC mode once you've established a new baseline. There's one exception where we're not setting EVC mode today, and that is if you're provisioning a Skylake cluster of using vCenter 6.5. So vSphere 6.5 doesn't support Skylake EVC mode. And so we're not currently setting an EVC mode when you provision a Skylake cluster on vSphere 6.5. So you'll want to, if you envision in the future, say ordering Cascade Lake hosts in the Skylake cluster, you want to do the work to set EVC mode to Broadwell for this Skylake cluster, or maybe upgrade to vCenter and vSphere 6.7 and then go ahead and set EVC mode to Skylake, so that you're prepared to accept the Cascade Lake hosts in the future. So 6.5 and Skylake is the one exception case because 6.5 doesn't have a Skylake EVC mode. Hopefully that answers the question. Okay. One other minor note here. So we talked about the cost estimator. We talked about the alternate ESXi configuration. We are, when we're deploying new hosts, there's a slightly newer patch level of vSphere 6.5 and vCenter 6.5 when we deploy. So vCenter will, for a new instance, will deploy an appliance at the update 2G level, and 6.5 will patch it to this particular build level. I think you can look for and expect a 6.7 update coming at some point in the future.
So can I just, you don't need to show me, but like just talk about, so when we're actually we have a deployed VCS instance and we want to upgrade, let's say we deployed 2.9, right, a couple months ago or something, and we want to upgrade to these feature sets. Is it as simple of as me as an end user, do I just go in and say upgrade it, and then I don't have to do anything, or what do I have to consider when I'm when I actually engage in that operation?
That's a very good question. So there's two considerations there. One is the IBM software version, and the other is the VMware software versions. The IBM software version is this numbering that you see here on the left, version 3.1, 3.0, et cetera. And you saw it here in this table that shows my vCenter server instance is at version 3.0. If you are at version 2.5 or higher, this is going to upgrade automatically for you whenever you perform a day two, what we call a day two operation, which is something like adding a host or adding a cluster or adding an add-on service. So beginning at 2.5 and above, you should treat your instance as always being the latest, even though it may not yet display the latest, because it will auto upgrade as needed. And in fact, you see this little informational hover text here that says, there, IBM Cloud Driver automatic updates are enabled. This Cloud Driver is this component we deploy to do work for you when you do something like adding a host, and he will do that automatic upgrade for you. So all this good stuff here in 2.5 and above, if you are on 2.5 or above, you're going to get it for free. Now, there's a qualification there. We're not deploying a new vCenter server appliance for you. So you only get a new vCenter server appliance if you deploy a new instance. But for your existing instance, you're going to have to upgrade existing hosts, existing vCenter server appliances if you want to pick up the latest VMware patch levels. And we actually have some guidance in our architecture center down here on how to do that. So we have, for example, the VMware Update Manager guide that tells you how to set up a proxy server and connect VMware Update Manager to VMware's public services. We also have an upgrade guide for getting from vCenter and vSphere 6.5 to 6.7. So if I go to how to and look at the details for vCenter server on IBM Cloud, there's a detailed upgrading from 6.5 to 6.7 guide that we have listed here as well.
Right. And thinking about those sorts of things, those are other reasons why, if you've had an older instance, you've done your own upgrades using VUM Upgrade Manager, VMware Upgrade Manager, you may want to bring an ESX host that's coming in as a lower level than what you've actually patched the instance to be, because you have full control over it. Then you bring it into maintenance mode and use VUM to bring it up to snuff. When you have that host provision, then you can release it from maintenance mode and you're good to go.
Yep, that's another very good reason that you should leave it in maintenance mode to begin with. Make sure it matches all of your specifications before you move VMs onto it. So at this point, we have a few items that we'll talk about that are kind of basic utility updates, along the same lines as these patching and version updates for vCenter. So we'll kind of rattle off some of these, but there's some configuration for new instances that we are setting now based on some best practices recommendations. Actually, best practices recommendations from the Cavionics Risk Foresight product. So we ran Cavionics Risk Foresight on our instances, and it recommended, oh, you should do these things. So we are setting the minimum length for vCenter server passwords now to 15 characters, setting a lockout policy now that allows a maximum of 3 failed login attempts and requires a 900-second interval between failure attempts.
And in Cavionics, that's Risk Foresight. That's basically something that allows for an analysis of an environment to point out specific compliance benchmarks against things such as HIPAA, PCI, SOC compliance, etc.
Yes, Cavionics is a really powerful kind of end-to-end compliance solution for your system. So there's a few things that it does. So one, it's not just able to scan management components like vCenter Server and NSX Manager, but it's also able to scan and assess the compliance posture of your workloads as well. And it does that in a pretty non-intrusive way using VMware tools and not using agents that it has installed on your workloads. So it's able to do some quick scans of things like operating system and software patch levels on your workload instances, system configuration, firewall configuration on your workload, on your workload VMs, and generate you a complete report of the compliance posture, both of your infrastructure and your workload. It's able to do remediation of your infrastructure and your workload. So you have it's able to help you assist you with configuring your login attempts, setting
Password policies.
on limits. Yeah, so it's able to help you manage your password policy configuration in your workloads. So it's able to help with remediation. It's a continuous scanning philosophy, so it's able to help you with monitoring the compliance posture of everything continuously, providing monitoring and reporting. The reporting capabilities are suitable even for use with auditors. So Cavionics is able to help you generate reports even of the non-technical aspects of compliance. So you can work in the Cavionics products to provide evidence for the non-technical things that, for example, your own policies and your own procedures. So you can build an end-to-end complete compliance report using Cavionics, not just of the technical aspects of security and compliance, but also the non-technical aspects. So it really is a very powerful tool, and it's useful both for the cloud and also the licensing that we have with Cavionics allows you to use it extended across your cloud and your on-premise environment. So it's a true hybrid cloud, multi-cloud product. Very powerful.
Awesome.
So we have an updated version of Cavionics Risk Foresight that we're deploying for newly deployed instances. If you've already got Cavionics Risk Foresight deployed, you need to update it yourself. The same is true for HITRUST. So we have updated versions of HITRUST Cloud Control, Data Control, and Key Control that we're using for new deployments. And if you have existing deployments, you need to upgrade them yourself. There's a new capability, a new license capability that's available in these latest versions of HITRUST. It's able to go out to the public HITRUST licensing server and continuously update and maintain your license. So you don't have to annually go in and work with IBM Cloud and HITRUST support teams to inject an updated license. So when properly configured, HITRUST can reach out and fetch an updated license before it expires, so that you have continual and you don't have to go in there and update it yourself. Okay. There's a little bit of some assembly required, and so we have documentation on how to do this. We've felt that the best initial configuration posture was not to have HITRUST connected to the public internet, but you can enable that yourself using the instructions that we have in the documentation. So Veeam is updated, as we mentioned earlier. We're now including the availability suite software, as well as the basic backup and replication software.
And that's pretty big deal, actually, because in addition to just the regular Veeam backup, the availability suite has a whole plethora of various tools and dashboards and things that is really useful, especially in, if you're in the capacity of backup restore in that role in your position, then that will definitely be a much appreciated feature. Thanks.
Excellent. Very good. I have one sort of low-level technical thing to describe for Zerto. So for Zerto, we bill based on usage. So if you replicate a certain number of VMs, we're going to bill you based on the number of VMs that you're replicating. That billing has previously taken place using the IBM Cloud Infrastructure Billing System, known as IMS, where you're also billed for things like your bare metal servers. But IBM Cloud also has a billing system that is integrated with all of the cloud platform services, like cloud object storage, for example. And so this is sort of the strategic new billing system for IBM Cloud. And we're now billing new Zerto deployments. We're billing for the usage of those using your IBM Cloud's PAYGO billing system and not using the IBM Cloud Infrastructure Billing System. So that's a little bit of a minor detail, but it's an important detail because it means that you need to make sure that your accounts are linked properly, so that when you're deploying, and this is really always the best practice, when you're deploying your vCenter server instance or your Zerto instance, you want to make sure that the IBM Cloud Infrastructure API key you have for all of the bare metal servers that you're deploying is matched to the same linked account that the vCenter server instance object itself is being deployed in, so that you have a unified account management, a unified billing, unified access management across IBM Cloud, both on the infrastructure side and the platform side. So IBM Cloud has gone through this great unification, and it continues to deepen the unification between the old infrastructure and platform sides of the house. And it is truly one cloud. And this is part of the evolution of that process. The idea of billing, having the linked account and on the infrastructure and the platform resources are all managed together.
One-stop shop.
Exactly. Yep. And if you have an existing Zerto instance, you can convert it from infrastructure or IMS-based billing to platform or BSS-based billing, as we call it, to using a button in your instance. I think I may actually have a Zerto instance that is unconverted here, so I can show you that button.
Cool.
Zerto on IBM Cloud. And I have the option to convert Zerto billing here. So I, in this case, actually do have, so 163.0967 is the account where my vCenter server object is deployed, where you're seeing the instance and its clusters and its and the services that I have deployed. 163.0967 is also the account where the bare metal servers reside. So I'm ready to do the conversion here. In this case, I have a linked account. It's I've got Pego set up on this. And the account linkage is matching. There's a few pieces of documentation here that I'll call out. So one is activity tracker events, and then the other is IBM user IDs. So we've done a comprehensive listing of all of the different activity tracker events that you can see based on actions that you're performing in the UI. So if I, for example, converted Zerto to from the infrastructure style billing to the platform style billing, you would see an activity tracker event. If I deployed a new cluster or added a new host, so for example, here's the instance BSS account migrate.
Scott, your audio cut out.
Interesting. Is it any better?
It is now.
Okay. Well, this is a full listing of all the possible activity tracker events that we generate, and it will show things. It's basically an audit log in your account of user X took activity Y on instance Z. So it's a way of auditing who did what, who deleted Zerto, and it's a full audit log for your instance. So those events are now they were previously documented, but there's now a more comprehensive list of them. And the other bit of new documentation we have here is a list of the IBM Cloud User IDs that we create. So we've got now a complete listing of the user IDs that we create in Active Directory, in NSX Manager for you, and on the ESXi hosts. We're documenting the service-specific user IDs. So for example, when you deploy Zerto, we actually create a user ID, an admin user ID, just for Zerto to use. So Zerto is authenticating with vCenter server using an ID in the Active Directory SSO domain. So we've got this documentation for you, and you can use that as a reference if you're, for example, examining QRadar, who did what, who created a data store, who deleted a VM. This is a good reference point for the IDs that might have done that.
Okay.
And the last thing I'll call out here is an enhancement related to the network details for your instance. So go back to this infrastructure view, and I'll take a look here at cluster 1. And we saw the hosts that are in the cluster, the storage that's in the cluster, and the network details. The network details is not new. We show you all of the VLANs and all of the subnets and a description of what they're doing. But what is new here is the ability to download a CSV file.
Wow.
All of these details.
Hey, so that's great.
Yeah, so now you can take this and you can put it into your spreadsheet, which is the real source of truth.
I mean, I know probably not everybody can appreciate it, but if the guys with the beards and are excited and jumping up and down, then this is a really good thing. So thanks.
We all know that the spreadsheet is the real source of truth, and it's
always
the real map of the universe.
Yeah, how many Fortune 500 companies run on PowerPoint and spreadsheets, right?
Yep.
All of them.
Yep. So the other neat thing here is that
That's a joke. That's a joke, guys. Sorry, well, that's just a joke.
We laugh because it's half true.
Wink, wink.
As far as you know.
Yep. The other neat thing here is that this same information is available on the public APIs that we provide. So over the last few releases, we've released some initial APIs that allow you to get details on your instance, to order new instances, to order new clusters and hosts, to add storage. And this in the last release, we had some new APIs on instance history, showing you actually those audit events of who did what to my instance, what when was the host added, when was the host add completed. So there's a new API here. I'll go in and show you my my get request here. There's a new API, get network details, that's going to, on my vCenter instance on a particular cluster, is going to fetch the VLANs list. And that VLANs list is going to have a whole bunch of other information on those subnets and IP addresses. So let me run the get tests call here together with all these other calls. So it's going to show you my instances, details on that instance, the instance history. Here's the first cluster. Here's cluster details, including all the hosts and even some host passwords there. So, and then we saw a really quick scroll by. Now there was the cluster details, and now this new API returns all the VLAN details. So the same information there we had in CSV format is now available also on the public APIs in JSON format.
Okay.
Exactly. So this just shows
this is great
for a list of VLANs. Each VLAN has a subnets object, which in turn has a list of IP addresses within it.
Well, so some other service providers, which I'll say unnamed, that actually use our services to provide their services. This is especially useful because they can build kind of wrappers around certain automation and portal instances, and to be able to tap in and provision things and get that information and pass on. So that's cool.
Exactly. If you want to, for example, automate, these are the subnets that a new VPN user ID needs to be authorized to. Then you've got the list of subnets right here.
Cool. Right. So another question from ANKSOS. I think he or she or they is asking basically, I guess this is talking about the cloud, our IBM Cloud site, basically, working on mobile devices. I've never even tried that. Have you guys?
No, I haven't.
I have not either.
ANKSOS, my suggestion there is to submit a case and see and get it. We can get it to the right folks, but that doesn't seem. I mean, I don't know. I've never tried it. Now I kind of want to, but I guess I'll have to VPN in and all that kind of stuff. But I'd prefer. Okay, I'll give it a shot. That's interesting. Thanks for bringing that up. And then there was a couple other. We had some more documentation that we produced as part of this release. We the day 2 operations and the operations management and day 2 operational procedures there. So these are basically, and this is going to segue into something else, but basically, so the operations management, one of the things that, as the platform is maturing, we're definitely getting more and more, consumed base, if you will. We've got the automation thing down. We're continually adding features and feature sets and different product sets for different use cases. Now it's about kind of like, how do we water and feed these environments? And one of the requests that we had were, some more direction on operational procedures, day 2 type things, like how can we leverage other tools? So we went out, obviously we created a reference architecture for use of vRealize Operations Manager, Log Insights, Network Insight, and Update Manager, especially. That's in our roadmap for automation. And then we have these day 2 procedures, which are basically kind of a nice set. We went through of like all the common, and we worked with our support team and everything, of all the common things that are frequently asked, all the common things that we, with our X amount of years of VMware experience, have, do for like daily maintenance. How do we watch things? How do we configure things, especially what do we do if an alarm happens? How do we handle certain errors? How do we troubleshoot broken things, etc. So we really took a lot of time and started plugging down like exactly, links to either IBM Developer Works articles or IBM knowledge base articles, VMware knowledge base articles, et cetera, and this is something that we're going to talk to coming up at VMworld, actually.
Yes, plug, baby.
Yeah.
Plug us.
All three of us that you see here on screen, we're all going to be presenting various sessions. Frank and I are going to be presenting applying machine learning to reduce day 2 troubleshooting and headaches. That's session HBO 3381BU. So basically what we did is we kind of, we started on this journey of using the various machine language, artificial intelligence things. We went into the space of, chat bots like, how do I back up a VM? And then it, comes back with a response based on the intent and so on and so forth. And then we started working at kind of taking, how do we take a corpus of all these different informations? Then we started looking at how do we actually apply that to a machine learning model. So we've had a lot of folks on our team and in the broader IBM, as well as collaboration with VMware on this specifically, of taking logs that are coming in across the entire environment. So this isn't just VMware specific, but this is Zerto, this is Veeam, this is F5, this is VSRX if it's in place, all these types of things, and being able to take those, look for anomalies, actually determine where an actual event occurs, and then looking prior to those events, corresponding those events to other systems or other dependencies in the environment to then go through a voting algorithm based on AI logic to determine, what is the likely recommendation for a fix based on this specific environment, based on this specific logs that are coming in from all of these different systems. So catch myself and Frank there. Frank, you got anything to add there? I mean, we're the other thing. So I'll be doing, I think on Wednesday, you can meet me at the vExpert panel. I'll be a guest speaker there as well. Frank and I will be hanging out hand in hand all throughout San Francisco, just enjoying the show. So if you see us out there, bump into us, introduce yourself, get to know us, ask us questions. We might be like quickly flying by, but we'll try our best to stop and chat. Frank, anything else you want to add there?
Likewise.
No, I ain't got no badges. I don't need no stinking badges.
No badges. And then what else we got? Do you want to talk to the other one, Scott?
Sure, yeah. So Andrew Guerra and I, Andrew Guerra is one of our offering or product managers. We'll be talking about some security and compliance patterns that we have learned from our customers over the last couple of years of VMware solutions in IBM Cloud. So we're going to talk about things like Cavionics Risk Foresight and High Trust, and how we've seen our customers put those into action to solve real world security and compliance challenges, and build a more secure offering in the public cloud than many of them have been able to do on premise. So join us for that.
Awesome.
That is SAI 3336BU.
Okay.
So we have a joint IBM VMware session here with Ajay Anthony from VMware and Jordan Shamir, one of the product managers from IBM. That's HBO 2979BU. This is another real world case study talking about American Airlines and how they leveraged, in particular, the VMware HCX technology to migrate, to exit some data centers that their lease was coming up due, and to do it successfully within the deadline. And really, I like to say that VMware HCX is, it meets the Arthur C. Clarke qualification of being one of those technologies that's so advanced that it's indistinguishable from magic. It really is amazing how many barriers it is able to overcome.
It is tremendous. So
And
shout
just,
out.
know that we, IBM was actually the first cloud entity to actually work with HCX outside of, it used to be included with a product you may remember called vCloud Air. And outside of that, we were the first customers, even outside of VMware themselves, to actually deploy and work with HCX. So we've been working with it for quite some time.
Been a long journey, and shout out to Ajay and Jordan, definitely. And also, I'll give a secret to anybody that's listening. There's 3 people on the screen that were also highly involved with that. So if you see us, ask us. I'm not going to say who the 3 are, but use your discernment and figure that out.
Okay, and the last 2 sessions that we want to call to everyone's attention have to do with, first it has to do with SAP and the family of SAP offerings that are available on IBM Cloud. So Sean Friedman is there to talk about that. That's BCA 3382BU. Okay. And then finally, we have some VMware and NSX experts from our IBM Cloud Services group. Jack Cherkis and Bill Serrata will be talking about NSXT and how they've built solutions to modernize IT infrastructure using NSXT. We're all excited about NSXT here in IBM Cloud and IBM Services. So this should be a good presentation.
Yeah, so it'll be a good show. If you're there, definitely come and try to check us out in our sessions. And if you see us walking down the hall or in any of the after hours events, feel free to say hello.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, absolutely. More than happy to meet with anybody and talk about this stuff, because been doing it for a long time, and and it's just a strong passion of mine. So anything else you guys wanted to talk about or add to?
I just want to make sure that when we're done here, Scott doesn't turn around and walk towards the light. Stay away.
He's little Willy Wonka window. I'm gonna.
He's truly blessed. Okay, so thanks, guys, and thanks to.
So the source code for the API calls here is in GitHub. So you can go to github.com/smoonin, and it's the VMware Solutions repository.
Can you plug that in the chat for us, please?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So this has samples of various API calls, even including samples of calling the ordering APIs with a verify flag to just test that it's valid, but without actually ordering. So you can use this as a basis for your own automation to deploy new instances, deploy new hosts or clusters. It's a good getting started package for you. So
yeah, and we know the guy who commits the code here, so we can shake cages if we need to, I guess is what they say. So, yeah, I'm just saying.
I'm responsible both for the outside and inside of this, actually.
Oh, so. We know a guy.
we know a guy. Talk to us.
Both the sample and the underlying code. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Scott. Thank you, Frank, and thank you, Mia, for doing our production and all the grunt work on the back end. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We hope you appreciate this. We'll be coming back at or around August 19th. We'll do another release. I'm not sure who will be speaking to that, but we have some folks in mind. So check us out. Also a reminder, VMworld is at the end of August in San Francisco. So all 3 of us will be there. So come check us out. There is some scuttlebutt that we may be capturing some things and that we might be presenting them back in future Twitch streams. So stay in tune for that. And without further ado, thank you and happy 4th of July. Bye.
Later.
Bye.